I want to just invite a man who has served in a number of sensitive positions inside the United States government. He's an attorney by training, but has been a specialist in China, both with respect to the mainland, and he's now very active with several institutes involved with the defense of freedom in Taiwan. But particularly relevant to our topic today and important, I think, to giving us, in addition to what Brian has said, a broad perspective as to why what we're here to discuss today matters so much, is Joseph Bosco, a former country desk officer in the Secretary of Defense's office for China. Joe, it's great to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Frank, and welcome to all. I think you'll find some resonance between my comments and those that Brian Kennedy has already made. Not surprisingly, we're pretty much on the same wavelength. For 4 decades since Richard Nixon's opening to China, both Republican and Democratic administrations have been asleep at the switch by ignoring the rising threat from communist China. Nixon himself, looking back at his own role years later, said he feared we had created a Frankenstein's monster. When the Senate Foreign Relations Committee considered the potential impacts of China's entry into the World Trade Organization, I was called as a witness and testified in opposition. Senator Jesse Helms, the committee chair, asked me only one question: would accession to WTO succeed in changing China? I replied that I was more concerned with how it would change us. And since China entered the world system, Western governments, corporations, academics, think tanks, and Wall Street have all chosen to look the other way, as Beijing built its threat and demonstrated its hostility before our very eyes. The Trump administration is the first to recognize the multidimensional danger and to take meaningful steps to address it. The Department of Defense has issued 3 major policy documents describing the malign posture of China, while the West was focused on the threats from radical Islam. The National Security Policy, the National Defense Policy, and the Indo-Pacific Strategic Policy Report lay out the administration's vision of the challenge presented to the Western world by China's communist dictatorship. It also lays out an American strategy to confront it through an all-of-government approach and cooperation with America's allies and regional security partners, such as Taiwan. Vice President Pence and Secretary of State Pompeo delivered major speeches recently confirming the Trump administration's clear-eyed approach to the existential danger, and they included human rights as an essential factor in confronting it. The administration has backed its statements of assertive U.S.-China policy, both in its military budget and preparedness, and by its no-nonsense approach in freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea and its transits through the Taiwan Strait. The strategy is clearly one of peace through strength and strength of will, which helped win the Cold War against the Soviet Union. Being clearly prepared for military confrontation in that period obviated the need to resort to actual force. China is presenting a somewhat different challenge and may be willing to engage in at least the first stage of military conflict, in the expectation that the West will fold first and use a so-called off-ramp to prevent further escalation. But Roger Robinson offers a powerful non-kinetic tool to reduce China's threat by eliminating or drastically reducing its ability to finance its military buildup, its aggressive policies, and its political repression through invasion into the very financial heart of our capitalist system, the U.S. stock market. Who would have thought that our 401ks would be used to buy China's weapon systems and instruments of torture against Uyghurs, Tibetans, Christians, Falun Gong, and political dissidents? We ignore Mr. Robinson's warnings at our peril. At the time that Lenin was in power, that's the original Vladimir, he said that capitalists would gladly sell communists the rope by which to hang them. Through instruments like the Federal Retirement Investment Board, we are also providing the wealth for them to buy the rope. I apologize for that. One ray of light that I saw in the letter that was sent by the Thrift Investment Board was its reference to the Treasury Department's Office of Financial Assets, Foreign Asset Control. According to the letter, that office within the Treasury Department has the power to ban investment in entire countries and corporations which represent a security risk to the United States. I think that would be the next step, Frank and Brian, for us to explore with the administration as to what the Treasury Department has already the power to do. Thanks very much.